Welcome to Reality After Show. I am your host, Alex Trias, always joined by the Joker, Dan Montchal. Dan, we have finally finished this final. I feel like I've ran the 100-hour final.
Yeah, this one was it was rough. I guess I'm not someone who's one of those Twitter trolls or Reddit keyboard warriors that just shits all over the show, because we obviously all love the show. Most of us have been watching it for years. We've seen 38 seasons plus spin-offs, all-stars, and we love it. We're passionate about it, but there was something just about this ending of the show that left a sour taste in my mouth. And it had nothing to do with the winners. I think the winners were deserved. It was just how everything played out.
Well, I mean, speaking of winners, we have our boy Devin finally pulling out the big one.
You're not intimidated. I'm a good competitor. That's what I said. Back-to-back finals. You come in fourth place. You know who else came in last place in the final? Me. You're just as good as me, idiot. You ain't never winning this. I'll tell you that. 2 finals. You ain't never 2 last place.
That was our boy Devin proving Fessel once again. Fessel was wrong. Devin and Tori, your new challenge champions, both in their 7th season. They joined Jonny as the only people to win their first champion or their first challenge season on their 7th try. I called it from episode 1. I will pat myself on the back there. They were made for this season. They were made for this final.
Sure, they were made for the final. They were the best team all season. It was well deserved. I have no issues with them winning. Them winning was not any issue for me whatsoever. I think that they're both good competitors. They're both great for the show. And as it seems, they're both going to be around for a while. And so seeing them get their first win in the season, I thought it was pretty fitting.
Absolutely. And we'll be shading this final, but we are not shading the winners. They
absolutely not.
They were for this season. I think even if it was a normal season, I think they win this final. If you keep all other aspects the same, but still have all the running up a mountain at the end. Me being my old school, raising my fists in the air. There's no mountain. There's no mountaintop. The final hasn't ended. But they led this whole final from start to finish. Like, the only period that they did not was because they didn't eat pasta like a child.
Because Nani can house pasta.
That was Nani's peak of the final, is her downing all that. But that gives them an advantage starting because we see the helicopter come in, and essentially we have like a daily to start day 3.
That was really, I think, where it started to get, and you could point back to the past few episodes where stuff started to get weird, but going into the finale, it felt like everything was more of a normal episode rather than this grand, ending of a finale. And I think that's part of the reason that people are having issues with it. I know it was part of my didn't necessarily love it, but I mean, they're trying something new.
Absolutely. And I think in a world where Horacio and Olivia don't have to be removed at early in the final, I feel you could totally make this a two-part final and it would work. You combine the best of the first 2 episodes that we had, and then you have this episode, and I think it's more palatable for me.
Agreed. I think if they don't get pulled, I'm assuming this is the ending of the final they have set up, so there would have been another elimination prior to the one we saw tonight.
I'm not sure about that, and we'll get there. The way it was set up had me a little confused over how they wanted the end game to go. But we get the pep talks of all 3 teams. I'm really not going to go over that stuff. It's what we've been hearing all season long. But the challenge itself is, while on a helicopter, you're throwing chalk bombs onto targets. Because Jonny and Nani did the best. Sorry. They had the most chalk bombs. then it was Tori and Devin, then it was Jordan and Anisa. But Bananas and Nani got to pick the order. And obviously, you put your big threat first. So they let Devin and Tori go, then Jordan and Anisa, then them. Unfortunately for them, they just couldn't get it right. The timing was off for their bombs, and for Devin and Tori, they were locked in. They got half of their chalk bombs to hit. But for me, this was just like a big waste of my time for 10 minutes. And it feels weird that like Devin and Tori's advantage consisted of a whole day's worth of like starting with a lead. Ends with Bananas and Nani getting a lead, and their lead only works for this one specific phase of the game, and it's one daily task.
Yeah, especially when you see that it amounted to that, because then, Tori and Devin obviously win this, and so off of this daily, they get a 10-minute head start over Nani and Bananas. Like, that's
the win.
Because even, you're right, because even when we see, some more of the older school, like 2-part finals, if you won day one, that's usually 5 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 to 5 minutes. So giving them a 10-minute head start, that's a huge advantage.
Right. And we say 10 minutes because it was ultimately worthless what Jordan and Anisa were doing. Not them as competitors, but just how it was worthless. Because the 10 minutes was for Bananas and Nani. And we even see like they needed that 10 minutes because based off editing, it looked like Bananas and Nani were starting to get a little close to Devin and Tori in the corn maze at the fork in the road. And this is where I'm a little... I think they meant for all 4 teams to be here and hoping that 2 teams each went either way. Because you get to either side and it's identical. There's some lights there. There's 2 tents. And that's it. And you're just waiting there. Oh, and a fire, because, fire. Fire represents life, you guys. Promo code Survivor, Manscaped, all that jazz. But we see the 2 great teams go to the left. We see Jordan and Anisa go to the right. And no one knows what's happening. They're like, are we sleeping here? Is this like a stage? Like, did we do something wrong? Like, there was no clear instruction on what was going to happen. You're just in a corn maze.
Yeah, because now obviously we see the next part coming up, which we're going to get to, but I thought was weird, and maybe they didn't have a stay up all night over challenge because it was over 5 days and they thought that would be too much, but I thought that's what we were going to get into. And so as much as the first segment or two, maybe not all that interesting, I was at least hopeful that, okay, this is where we're going to ratchet up. There's going to be some, overnight competition, and this is going to lead to not necessarily making your way to the maze till, I don't know, middle of the night or something like that.
Right. And suddenly all the lights turn on and you see the giant structure in the middle where TJ's standing, which seemed to only be there for him to stand on and just be something big because there's no use to it other than that. And essentially you have Maze Runner. And based on when you got to your station on either side, you were then released. And this one, I think we didn't really get a time limit of like, oh, was it 2 minutes? Was it 5 minutes again? But it just really showed for how vital getting first into this maze was. Because by being able to start first, everyone who goes in, that's how they place. Tori and Devin get first, even though they do some editing trickery and make it look like Bananas and Nani may actually be pulling it out and getting there first. But this is where Nani's knee comes in, and Nani's knee's hurting. Turns out that's all it was. Like, that was the climax of Nani's knee was, oh, it hindered her a little bit in the maze, and then she yells at Bananas for being hard on her, but really just being motivating. But she was also mad at him when he was goofing off in the beginning during all the rounds that did not matter.
This was one of my issues with, and I understand what they're doing from an editing purpose, because so they obviously know Tori and Devin are your winner. And so you're seeing a lot of highlighting of how good they are as a pair. You know, it's very little arguing. We only really saw once, and Devin immediately apologizes. And I feel like it's trying to put a negative light on Nani and Bananas because they get in these bickerings, which for some people, yes, that's going to be annoying. It doesn't work together. But we have what, 13, 14 seasons worth of, seeing Nani and Bananas working together in some capacity. This is always how they've worked. This isn't anything new. It doesn't mean that they're bad partners together. It's just, this is how they express themselves sometimes. But I don't think when it comes away from it, even when, Nani will fire back at Bananas, if there's ever, oh, he's a bad partner.
Mm-hmm. No, and he isn't. Like, I think he handles the final differently if the final was more of our typical final format. Because there were so many days and so many stations that truly at the end of it all meant nothing, he could be a little more relaxed because he feels like maybe that's something that's needed in order to help get through all these days. Because I see some traction on social media like, oh, this is what Bananas deserves for fooling around all day. I'm like, day 3 and day 4, he wasn't fooling around. Tori and Devin just did better.
Yeah.
Like, end of the day, like, it's respect to Tori and Devin for this being their thing and not his and Nani's thing, especially when it comes to puzzles. But we get through the maze. Jordan and Anisa get there last, but more importantly, Tori and Devin get there first. We get stuff, and, they did such a good job that Tori needed to fart and pee a little.
I mean, sometimes when you got to go, you got to go.
Yeah, I just like that because it again just shows the kookiness of Tori that I think fans originally enjoyed her for. Whether or not they still do is a different story, but like I enjoyed it. It was some good levity for the final. I love Bananas and Nani finally getting there, and Devin's just like, if it makes you feel any better, we've been here for a while, so like just trying to get more into their heads. But at this point, like, nothing that's really being said or done is really going to impact how things are going. And then, so this started at hour 82. Jordan and Anisa get there at hour 83. So overall, it takes an hour. To me, it's not surprising, especially if you're walking most of it. It's a big maze. And it sounded like specifically they kept calling out to Jordan and Anisa whenever they did stuff wrong. So I'm curious how much direction all three teams got maneuvering through the maze.
Yeah, no, I think like you said, it makes sense. I mean, if anyone's ever really done a corn maze out there, it's obviously not in the situation, but taking an hour or so to get through it, I feel like that's completely normal because that's what these mazes are intended to do, to trip you up, send you the wrong way. And so I didn't really take much from the editing of it. Now, maybe they were trying to help them if they were clearly lagging behind that much, but I didn't read into it much.
Yeah, but now they have all gone to the center, which is the final zone. Instead of the zone, it's the final zone. I don't know. It got me thinking up to this point, especially now that we get to like, oh, because you're first place, you're safe from elimination. Only this final, as we see, I believe was always intended for only 2 teams to go head to head at the end. I have no clue how they were expecting to drop off another team. Maybe that was something that would have happened in between the cars and the second night of eating. And that's why we only get those 2 specific events during that like portion of the day. But
yeah, could have been.
My flaw with this final, and I want to have like an open discussion here, and viewers, you can talk about it too. Tweet at us, tell us your thoughts on it. Do you like this final in the sense of it allowed it to be as even of a level playing field for all teams that were going to participate? Because one thing that people will detract players like Amber for their wins was, well, you only won because you had a good partner and you could run. So like maybe this is a final format where Amber, even with CT, doesn't do as well in, because it's not as reliant on getting big leads from running. Especially at the end of the day, all the stuff you do in the first 3 days truly didn't matter.
I think for me, if it doesn't necessarily have to be all about the running. Like I think some finals, depending upon where you're at, and especially if you're going up that mountain towards the end, sure, it can be more focused on running, but I don't think all of them have to be that way. My biggest issue was that for the most part, 4 of these days didn't matter. It didn't really matter at the end of it. And, not to jump too far ahead, but, we're getting into the elimination, but we're at a spot where if Tori and Anisa would have, Anisa and Jordan, sorry, getting all tied up.
Well, they're real life ride or dies.
Yeah. Had Jordan and Anisa ended up winning this elimination, which if Anisa's healthy, like it's not that far-fetched. What did Tori and Devin spend all this time out in front for to come down to basically an elimination at the end? That's my biggest issue with it, is it doesn't need to be all about the running, but I feel like there should be some timing involved, whether it be your time for the day, your time at each specific event, something where it's cumulative, where everything that you're doing matters and at least gives you some type of advantage, just not, well, sometimes, you get a 5-minute head start. Sometimes you get a advantage on a daily. I think it should be something more that it really incentivizes you to not lay back that first day or two, which you can easily do in this format.
So my issues with it are, like you, the time, the commitment of, well, we must do 100 hours allows for 90% of the stuff to not matter. And this final is aces. If it's just last night's episode, great. I'm totally fine with that. Start with a competition where everyone's at a starting point because of how someone does. You run, you get an advantage, and then you get to the end. And like my other point, so Stockade Kid, thinking on my level, this is like, imagine that you have Tori and Devin and you have Bananas and I, say no injuries. Everything's still going the exact same way that it was going up to that elimination. But if Jordan and Anisa won, I would be hard pressed to say that they would have had a leg up in that final like elimination chamber that they used as the final stage. Like, we could be saying Jordan and Anisa winners of the season, and that would be after 100 hours where they were trailing for a majority of the time.
Yeah, they would have been trailing for 90 plus hours of it.
And that wouldn't be the case if you're running up a mountain. You can still like have all this stuff. Like, I'm not hard pressed about the mountain of it all. I just want the final to make some level of sense. And I'm not someone who believes challenges should be fair. No, like, I think you could even say, because Tori and Devin won, not only are they safe from elimination, when we get to this final stage, they get the choice of making one of those stages easier for themselves. So, like, do you want a head start and you can already have 3 of the pegs pulled out of the wall? Do you want some of the dirt, like, already out? Do you want less chains? Like, I think there could have been something where there was more of a award than just like, oh, you were safe from elimination.
Yeah, agreed. I think they could have done it that way, but going back to the point that, yeah, maybe you and I are a little biased. We like seeing going up the mountain at the end, but it doesn't have to be like that. You could do a final, like, what is it? Rivals 2. It's Wes and CT and right. Paul and Emily win, where it's the 5 stages all throughout the day, but all of them matter because it's a race that, like, whoever finishes it first wins.
Or like Cara Maria's win. Like, it wasn't running up a mountain. Like, there was a lot of running involved, and this final also had a lot of running. But, like, end of the day, like, that wasn't the moment for Cara Maria for her win. There was a one last puzzle, and by winning the puzzle, she won. It's like, so, like, it's not the fact that it was just dailies and eliminations, because that's something I enjoyed, was let's get these callbacks of all these eliminations. And you know what? If you want to win, you like, for some of you avoided all these eliminations. So now you must go for the gauntlet and compete and defeat all of these things that we had set up throughout the season in order to win for this specific season. So like that part I don't have a problem with. I didn't like that there wasn't as much incentive for the first 3 days truly to be doing well. Like Jordan and Anisa were walking for most of this and could have won. And I wouldn't have respected that.
Would Gabler win all over again?
Don't use that name in this podcast.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I think they could use a lot of the elements challenges from this final, and there just could have been a way that it would have been done so much better that it ultimately would have ended up at the win. Like, I mean, you even could have made it where you had a lot of these challenges, the former eliminations and all these different checkpoints, and then at the end it does come down to finding yourself through the corn maze. Maybe that's not as exciting, but that's who can, if Tori and Devin are still in the lead, sure, they have a little bit of a head start, but it's still make the corn maze bigger, a little bit more difficult. And it's that type of race to the end where I think it becomes more compelling TV because of how you can edit it. Because you said that we were kind of misled at the one overview where it looked like Nani and Bananas were going to get there first. I think there's a lot more compelling they could have done editing wise and showing it to be like, oh, who really is going to get there first and make it to TJ, and that's your winner.
Or even I could have been just fine with, you had that giant structure, have it be like you have to complete elimination to get to the next like floor, and the winner is the first team to finish all 4 and get to the top. Like, just visually I feel like and then you hit the lever. Like, it was just that, oh, everyone's on the ground, oh, I hit the lever, oh, there wasn't even a panel here. Like, I could have just cheated and walked through the panel and hit the lever. Up, I won. Obviously being facetious, but I just think cosmetically it could have been cleaner, nicer, more visually appealing. Not to go against it. It's still hard work at the end of the day. So Tori and Devin are safe. Bananas and Nani versus Jordan and Anisa in one last elimination. And I'll say, this was, I believe, like at least 10 seasons in the making. Back in, I want to say Free Agents, when Bananas beat Isaac in Balls In, Jordan said,
"That's not me down there, homie.
It's not me down there, homie." And Jonny said back to him, "Let's do it one day, and your good hand will look like your bad hand."
I think he said that, and he's like, "You won't just be missing a hand when we're done. I'm going to rip your bleeping head off."
Obviously, both have matured since then, but we still finally get that Balls In moment between these two, because I don't believe we've ever seen them actually have a truly physical head-to-head. Like because in Free Agents it was the wall climbing elimination, which I think they should bring back. But this time it's Balls In, and I believe they did this on purpose. Dan, I know you have thoughts on it. So in this Balls In specifically, once you drop the ball, or lose control in any way, you're done. Your specific time on offense is done. But if you get past your defender and just get within this roped circle, you can stop. They can't tackle you anymore. It's essentially the end zone, and then you drop the ball in. First team collectively to get the 3 points wins. I will say before I let you go, the one thing I did like here was it wasn't just, we're going to have the women go to 3. Okay, now we're going to have the men go to 3, and then let's do a coin flip for who goes. It was 1, 1, 1, 1, and it kept going in that pattern. So like, it was truly reliant on your ability, your individual ability for both of you to survive.
I was completely fine with that. I'm completely fine with, if once you lose the ball, it's dropped, your turn's over. I'm fine with that. My issue was once you get into the safe zone, your defender can't do anything and you can just drop it in. Why? Like don't tell me that the challenge production now gives a shit about player safety, because they don't. So I don't understand with that. I think it makes way more compelling. And I mean, you start to see it with, the women go first, but that next round with, both Jordan and Bananas, they kind of, once it gets to the ground, all they really need to do is roll themselves into the safe zone and it's over. And it's like at that point, no, it's not. That could still go so many different ways depending upon how that grappling and wrestling goes on the ground.
So I want to say, without knowing any of it and hearing from none of the players about it, I want to say it's because you're you're basically 4 days into a final, 3 days, whatever. They know that, well, yeah, we're going to give them essentially a full day off before coming back the next night to do the final stage. But we already have lost a team. Let's not lose both the other teams and only have one team remaining and have the challenge USA on our hands.
My only question with that was, now granted, Nani, 2 bonehead decisions. She's going through, she had it easy. All she had to do was stop and drop it in. But if you looked at when both the males went, as soon as they got into the circle, it was really quick with the horn and they were good. So all that time, that both those times Nani both got in there, why was the horn not beeped? Like, it's over.
think it was different because in both of those instances, Anisa wasn't wrestling her and they weren't heading into the ground. Whereas both times, or both ways with Jonny and Jordan, they were wrestling each other and on the ground as they were passing. So I felt that was their way of saying, like, okay, let's make sure when he gets in there, he has control of the ball. He still has control of the ball. Horn. And then you drop the ball in. But I agree. It should just be like, but I think even if they did do that, I don't think Nani was going to be hearing it. Like, I think she just was so in the zone that it was the same exact thing as last episode with the car. She wasn't thinking. Like, it was, and not to say that she wasn't thinking, like, oh, she's being dumb. It was just like, she was so, her sole thing was, I need to juke Anisa so that Anisa doesn't get her hands on me. Because if she gets her hands on me, I have lost. So by the time I run past her, then it's like a football play. It's like, oh, I see the end zone. It is right there. I'm going to keep going. My adrenaline's pumping. And then you miss.
I think if they wanted to keep it this way, I think the other thing they could have done was put an outer circle in. So it's more kind of classic to what we've seen for balls in, that the defender can't go outside. Like, they kind of have to wait until the person on offense steps in past the rope. Because before it was pretty much just up in the air as you're starting, I don't know, maybe 10 feet back. And then it's up to the defender if they want to run at him real quick, if they want to wait to let him get close. I'd at least rather seen, Survivor Thailand in the tax zone, something like that.
I mean, this all could have been solved by a pole wrestle.
That too.
And if you want your pole wrestled and your balls dropped, we got the ad for you.
Support for Reality After Show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. That's right, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SURVIVOR at manscaped.com. If my math's correct, that's about 12 million balls.
The Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and oh man, is it a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies.
First off, the Lawnmower 4.0, this trimmer is the future of grooming, and dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever.
Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to help reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and has a 4000K LED spotlight that you need for a more precise shave.
Now, I have a dark shower curtain in my bathroom, and I've been looking for the perfect way to shave in the dark, kinda. Guess what? I found it! 4000K LED! No longer a problem. I got perfectly smooth, clean balls thanks to the Lawnmower 4.0.
It's time to take care of yourself, so go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the code SURVIVOR. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code SURVIVOR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Thanks for sticking with us through the ad break. And don't forget, for more exclusive Reality After Show coverage, visit realitypatron.com. That's reality, patron.com.
And we are back. Before we get back into the finale of The Challenge Ride or Dies, we are less than 2 weeks away from U.S. Survivor being back. And who doesn't want to watch Survivor with the legends, Jonny Fairplay and the Queen, Sandra Diaz-Twine? Jonny, once again this Survivor season, will be doing, his live viewing party tour all up and down the East Coast. And if you're interested, we have plenty of tickets for you. On March 1st, they will be in New York City. On March 15th, they will be in Nashville, Tennessee. March 22nd, Cincinnati, Ohio, with our very own Matt Bischoff, as well as stand-up comedian Wayne Memmott. On March 29th, they will be up in Boston, Massachusetts. On May 3rd, down in Durham, North Carolina, where, who knows, I think there's going to be a few other special guests from season 43 that are going to be there as well. You're not going to want to miss that, as well as a nice beer release that are Villains RS. I think you'll really enjoy. Then back to it on May 17th in Charlottesville, Virginia. And then closing it out for the finale, my hometown in Charlotte, North Carolina. All of these events will have a fire-making competition, that you'll be able to see Jonny and Sandra going at it, maybe some of the special guests as well. All of them will also have plenty of special guests showing up as well, that if you keep checking on Jonny's social media, I'm sure he'll be there to update you on everyone who will be there. You can get all these tickets at survivortix.com. That's survivortix.com. And come watch Survivor with Jonny Fairplay and the Queen, Sandra Diaz-Twine.
Thank you so much, Dan, for all that. Please go to those events. Those are always a fun time. Very great experience for all those who have attended past events that Fairplay has ran for Survivor watch parties. But if you can't go, don't worry. You'll have the podcast here with me, Matt Bischoff, Dan, like everyone. Our whole crew's great. So we're going back into the challenge now. We talked on the Nani of it all. First 2 attempts, she does a great job juking Anisa. Helps that Anisa really only has one leg to use, but still very good. Shows that her heart's in it, but she just goes too quickly, doesn't get the ball in the hole. But what can you do? Puts more pressure on Bananas. Bananas Jordan trade-off wins the first go around. But let's talk more about Nani. Nani's a dog. Like, she is a DAWG dog. Like, she is going into full, football mode. Is when you do your scouting reports and you're told, oh, this player that you'll be matched up with has a bum knee, bad shoulder. So when you go and face them off, it's not like you're trying to injure them, but you aim at where they're weakest, because that's when they will make mistakes.
In some defense to Nani, because I've seen her getting crushed for going after Anisa like that. Had Anisa been quote unquote healthy, I don't think the strategy really changes, because as she started saying, and Anisa even acknowledged in some of her confessionals, that she's just bigger and has more power and strength than Nani. So if Nani tries to go even high or even at her hips, Anisa's going to be able to push that off, and she's going to have no shot at stopping her. So while, yes, visually it isn't great, because you do see Nani repeatedly going after her knee, after her ankle. It was really her only shot at trying to win those rounds of the elimination.
Hey, to all those complaining, even if it was against the people I enjoy, I'd be mad about it, but all's fair in love, war, and challenges, baby. It's the only move to do. Anisa even says it herself. And I do appreciate Anisa here for not buying into the questions from production.
The trap production.
Yes.
Trap
They tried to trap her so good to be like, how do you feel? Like, Nani's your friend, and she's like going after your injured leg. And Anisa does not bite, and she just goes, hey, if I was in her shoes, I'd do it too. The end of the day, one of us has the opportunity to make money, the other will not. You gotta do what you gotta do.
It was the only real strategy. She had no other way of potentially trying to steal around, especially after she kind of blew 2 points already. Like, she needed to stop Anisa.
Right. And I will say, I think fully healthy Anisa, like if this was just a normal elimination, even with that strategy from Nani, I think non-injured Anisa would still win here. Because I think she was so focused on her legs, she couldn't like really be as physical as she wanted to be. And I do think it's still hard for her to go against a friend in general, so she's never going to go as hard as someone that she doesn't care for. Like, you throw Amber in there, she's dog walking her with a smile on her face. But it's Nani. They've been friends for over a decade. Like, they are very close. They know each other. So I think it was a perfect storm for everything to go against Anisa in this specific moment. Doesn't help that then she also hurts her knee, which according to her on like some Instagram comments and stuff, that it was an injury to her ACL and a torn meniscus.
Yeah, her knee got tore up pretty bad there.
And like, I have to like remind myself that even when you get injuries in your leg, that you can still more times than not walk on it, especially ACL and like ligament injuries. Because there was a brief moment where after they lost and she's up and walking fine, no crutches, no assistance, I was like, wait 1 second.
Alex was ready to pounce.
I was ready. And it was like, wait, I work in pharmaceuticals. I have a sister who works in PT. Like, my grandparents were doctors. Like, I had to like take that step back. Like, wait, no, this checks out. You got away with it this time, Anisa. And be clear, I said positive things here. So, good for you. Like, this was a final that you could have won.
Look at Alex turning over a new leaf.
No, it's not turned over. It's very much a dried up, crusty, like breaking apart flakes of a leaf. But still a leaf.
It's still there. It still counts. Yeah, going into it, seeing what it was, especially because you had that safe zone, I thought Jordan and Anisa were going to win. I was like, This is set up for them, just simply because all Anisa needed to do, now I'm sure she was in a lot of pain, especially after taking 1 or 2 of those first shots from Nani, was she didn't need to power her way into the circle. Had she just been able to get over to the ground, like onto the ground with the ball, she could have rolled herself into that, and there would have been nothing Nani would have been able to do to stop that.
Right, as long as she didn't lose control of the ball, which I do think they blew that horn only because of injury at the end, because she didn't lose control of the ball. For all purposes of the rules of the game, she wasn't done yet. She was just on the ground. But, it is what it is. I do want to touch on Banana's logic on how he not even outsmarts Jordan, but uses a different tactic where, hey, all's fair in the game. You can, anything that's on your body, you can use to pull someone down. So he takes off his long sleeve stuff and he's like, I'm only going to wear my sleeveless, Under Armour, essentially. And he uses Jordan still using are wearing his long sleeve shirts against him and uses that to pull and tear the ball away from him.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again from Bananas. If there's a way that he can hack a challenge a little bit to give him a leg up, he's always the first one to figure that out. And you see it again right here.
Yeah, so Balls In was not Jordan's friend this season.
It was not.
And does this count towards like the elimination record? Like the official one, or is this a weird thing because it's in a final? I forget what the terms are here.
Yeah, I can't remember if last season, if Nani's loss to Casey counted as elimination loss, or if it's in the final and it doesn't matter. I would say I would lean towards not counting, but you could convince me either way.
But you know what? They count purges. So you know what? Here on the Reality After Show, I am counting this as another win in Bananas because I think it gets him to 500 or a 500 record for his elimination instead of a losing one. So Bananas, when you eventually listen to this, because obviously you listen to this and not your own podcast, hey, we gave you a point here. But they win. Anisa and Jordan go out with their heads held high. I think Jordan showed like that he can be a good sport. Like he's always been like a good sport when it comes to officially losing. It's in the process of losing that Jordan is usually very hot-headed about. But once he lost and he like saw Anisa go down, he was like, does not matter what I feel right now. Like I'm here for my partner. She's hurt. I need to make sure she's good.
Agreed. And I know there's been a lot of Jordan bashing on the season. Rightfully so. He's given us some of it. But I think what this is showing and what we're seeing throughout, then even just the end of the episode, is I think the edit did him a little dirty with how much they really kind of threw him under the bus. Because not that, he obviously said it, so it's out there. It isn't like they're taking and putting words into his mouth. But you see them at the end and you see all the clips of how mad Anisa is at Jordan throughout it. But you see him at the end and everything. They're like, okay, like he's a good guy. He is a good partner. Maybe it's not always the best tactics, but he's there for you. And it's the same way that I think he did a little dirty on the whole editing with Tori as well, because sure, there's a ton of things that I'm sure he would like to take back or could have been done better, but he never stopped supporting her throughout this entire season. And so it's like, just remember that he's not that bad of a guy.
Yeah. They use that against him at the very end here, but okay, so they're gone. We go through 24 hours because I'm not going to talk about it. It's the next night. It's the final elimination. But don't worry, we got some people here to help you out. Come on in, guys. Have you guys forgotten about recently eliminated Anisa and Jordan? Like you guys eliminated them. And also here's Horacio and a broken-faced Olivia, who's good on her for smiling. Because I you know what? I would not be in any mood right then and there. That you're literally making me come out here at night to just watch something happen. I'm not involved. You couldn't just tell me at the hotel what happened.
Yeah, I would have wanted no part of that if I were her. Like, did you see what happened to my face? Like, I'm going to take some time from me.
Did you? Yeah, like, again, all the strength to her. It's why I love Olivia. This is a 4-stage structure. Looks like the Kenny elimination at first, where I was like, oh, is Kenny going to show up? Guest appearance, celeb shot.
That's how you win. You make yourself to Kenny first.
The Joker Kenny. Yes. He is the best human of all of them, as we learned. Yeah. The best of all of us, really. Kenny, if you're out there, we appreciate you here at Reality After Show. Anyway, we got 4 stages. The 4 stages are the Nelson and Fessel elimination, where you pull the rods through the drywall, get all of them in. And it's the same exact number, so I appreciate that. Shows that, okay, this is going to be difficult. You were having a full-ass elimination be the first stage of it. And then the second stage is, oh, if you think you were worn out there, You then must pull out 230-pound cinder blocks and put them in a puzzle, or like form them into a puzzle, which has like the challenge logo. There's some of them painted, a lot of them not painted. Not painted. You have to do it right, because really, if one wrong piece happens, you're done. Like, this stage is the final.
This is what it comes down to. Yeah.
Because the next stage is hard, but it's like dump all the dirt out and then get to the next stage. Final stage was just essentially the first part of the Nelson and Festival elimination, where there's all those chains that you have to just like undo, and then get to the middle, pull the lever, you and your partner, ride or dies, because you live and die by your ride or die, and you'll be the Challenge 38 ride or die champions.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. There's 4 stages, but it all comes down to the puzzle. Like, that's where you're either going to win it or you're going to lose it. And unfortunately, we see both examples play out.
So it's funny because I keep seeing people blaming Bananas here, and I blame them as a duo. I really don't blame one or the other, but we see why one, Devin's very good at this, like very good at puzzles. And Devin and Tori very specifically know their roles and are good at their roles. Tori's the muscle, Devin's like the direction. He's the brain of it. Bananas needs Nani to be the brains of it. And it's just through oversight. They make a couple mistakes. Like, the first one is just like having a full level lower, but they fix it. It's good. It takes a lot of time, wear and tear on your body, because it's cinder blocks, people. But by the time they realize, oh crap, after Bananas kept asking her, like, hey, this one has paint. This is obviously not in the middle. One of the ones that had paint on it ends up in the middle of the structure. The only way they would be able to solve it is by tearing down all of it.
I don't think that this is, the reason why Devin and Tori won. Like, they won because they were better at this challenge. Devin is awesome at this. But the one thing I do want to point out is that they are doing this challenge at night. It's a lot easier to overlook a darker purple one than a more fluorescent green one.
You're not wrong there. You're not wrong. I also love the idea that Tori's trying to hide the puzzle by making loud noises so people would look over at her.
It's a Toryism.
It's a bold strategy. I don't believe it paid off. It paid off that that Bananas and Nani put a purple piece in. I do agree with that though. Like, even with the lights on, I did find that weird as I was watching. I was like, that's a very dark shade of purple. Like, you couldn't just do like two. And I get it. Like, it's the colors of, like, quote unquote colors of the season. You couldn't just do 2 fluorescent colors. Like, would that have been that hard? But you can't cry over spilled milk. You can't cry over hidden cinder block. But it literally is just like, I don't consider this a quit. No. I think this is very different than people make the comparisons of, well, everyone dropped on Sudoku. Okay, with a Sudoku, you could still write stuff. I know it was cold, but you could still write stuff. You're physically moving hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of cinder block just to then restructure all of that same weight. It wears and tears on your body at a certain point. And that's why, like, kudos to Devin and Tori. They didn't just start rushing to create it. They put everything out. They figured out what spots were what, and they did it methodically. Whereas Nani and Bananas had the lead, and they were like, well, let's just keep mounting that lead. Let's start structuring, and made mistakes. And ultimately, in a final, any one mistake can kill your game, and that was theirs. It allowed Tori and Devin to have a cakewalk for the last 2 stages. They pulled the lever. They're challenge champions. But wait, the other thing I can't stand. Devin goes, CT and Casey have started a tradition.
No, they
we are going to give each and every one of you $38,000 of the winnings. because it's the 38th season of the challenge. Y'all were here with us the entire time. We know how hard this final was. You all earned your way here. You all deserve to have money. Because I remember when we lost last season, having that money made it felt worth the pain. And I respect it. Very respectful move. It's obviously tactful also because it's a lot of their friends. My issue here is production shouldn't need to have the winners reward the other finalists money. You can still have $1 million prize for first place and then have smaller prizes for the other teams that finish. That's because this tradition that that big alliance has started now incentivizes to never turn against the majority. Because if I can just get to the end, I'll get paid anyway. They'll pay me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wasn't even thinking along the lines of how you are, which is a really good point. But for me, it's just I don't understand why they stopped paying second and third place. If you don't want to pay fourth, that's fine. We've seen that in the past. We've even seen, if you're going back a number of seasons, where third wasn't always getting money. But if you're second place, you're Nani and Bananas, you've went through 100 hours of all this, there should be something. $100,000 they split between the two of them, something like that. There's no reason why these finalists shouldn't be getting anything extra for going through what, 8 to 12 weeks of the show.
Right. Absolutely. And maybe it calls into question what the appearance fees are now for these people. And maybe a production sees that as like, that's enough. Like, that's enough. We'll put all the money into you winning. So incentivizes winning, but it doesn't really when you then allow it to be disseminated amongst the cast. Because what stops them from saying in the house, like usually, like, it's taboo in Survivor to be like, hey, if you let me win, I'll give you X amount of the money. Like, that's a big no-no, especially in reality competition shows, at least on camera, on site.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes things a little bit trickier here, a little muddier, but we'll have to see what happens in future seasons on the main show. I love seeing Bananas being like, love in a weird way, devastated over not being able to get Nani across the finish line. It shows that he actually did care. Like, he really wanted, like, that was his motivation. His motivation was Nani. Like, I want Nani to get her a win. I want her to be a champion because she's been here for so long. She's been to so many finals, been so close. It's been runner-up, like, so many times now. And maybe it calls into question, because as we are getting close to the hour mark, we can sort of go through these players here. Is this Nani's peak? Is Nani never going to be able to get that little extra and get that win? Is her peak always going to be a runner-up?
Yes, with a caveat. I'd say in an individual or duo pair scenario, I just don't think at this point she's going to be able to get a win. If she goes back to, they do another team format, especially with all the friends that her and Casey have in the house, I think she could win a championship that way. But I don't think it's ever going to happen by herself, like as an individual or with a pair. I just think, unfortunately, she's a really great competitor. I just don't think it's in the cards anymore. She kind of has a little bit of that similarity to Paula prior to Paula breaking through and getting those last few, where she's going to do well every season that she's there. She is a good runner. She has a lot of good things, but I don't think there is that partner that's going to push her over the edge at this point to win a final.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know who that partner is anymore. Like, maybe it is CT. Like, it didn't work with Leroy, didn't work with Bananas. I don't know anymore. But I love Nani, and I'll always have her on, watch her on this show. As long as she's showing that she truly cares about the game, and she does. Jordan, nothing to say. He's great, works hard. gets dogged here, where he says, like, I really wanted to see Tori get her championship finally, only for Tori to then go, like, the biggest hardship for me this season was dealing with Jordan, but being able to win with my best friend was, I will take everything that I have had to deal with these first 7 seasons to get this win now.
So the conversation with Jordan that I want to propose to you is, I don't think Jordan's done winning challenge championships.
No.
The more curious thing with him is, because he did take that long layoff off, which probably may come back to hurt him. And who knows if CT comes back? I'm sure he will at some point and gets it. Can Jordan catch CT or potentially overtake him?
Ooh, that is a tough one. Was he at 3 wins right now?
He's at 3 right now. Yeah.
He's at 3. CT's at 5. Bananas at 7.
Yeah. And then you could have like Darrell's at 4. Like,
are we counting the break-off shows, the World Championships, the All-Star formats?
If it counts for Wes, I think it should count for Jordan.
Okay, for
they
now,
say Wes has 3, but
right.
It's only 2 on the flagship.
Okay, so let's say All-Stars for now, because we don't know what this off-brand, third-rate World Championship mess has, like, what that entails for the franchise. So, in that regard, I think it's possible. I think it's possible that he can tie. I think it would be currently very hard for him to win 3.
Agreed. If I was going to put the over-under for Jordan for the rest of his career, I'd put it at 2.5. I think is the right number for him, as long as he keeps, like, he doesn't take another long hiatus.
Well, I'm going to not make my prediction on live on this podcast, because whatever I say, Jordan will prove me wrong. So might as well say over at this point.
And it wasn't even like a over under 2.5. I was just saying that if you were going to put it out there, I think that would be the right number to put it at.
Bananas does, like, I believe he's not a, like, oh, we must have him every season, but I do believe he's still a necessary part of the show. He is the challenge. He is the challenge. CT is the challenge. Like, if he's there, he's always going to be a threat. I don't know if he ever gets the 8th win, and I don't think truly he cares if he gets the 8th win, because at this point, his legacy, it's Teflon. Like, there's nothing that can happen moving on. The people that don't like him will already not like him anyway, or detract from him, the naysayers. But pen to pavement, he is 7 and 10 in finals now.
Yeah, 7 or 10. Yep.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that, we'd love to see, but at this point they're getting older, I don't know if it could, is one more last showdown in a final, CT and Bananas. Let's
do enough... 5 years, and then we'll go to All-Stars and actually make it a senior circuit.
True. Because I think that would be enough for him. I would be interested to see how that would go, simply because I think you'd see more motivation from Bananas than CT, because there's people out there that say that his 5 is greater than Bananas 7. I don't agree with that.
Well, his 5 got him more money overall, more
True.
winnings, I should say. But if Bananas wants to beat CT in that regard, he needs to re-up his skills in terms of puzzles, because CT is a master of them. Like, it's unfair how good at everything CT is, even when he was out of shape. CT now single again with alimony payments, at least one version of it, if not 4, based off rumor and innuendo. He has motivation too. More diapers, man. But that leaves us Anisa. What are we doing here? I think you can have the challenge podcast, and that can be your way of still being a part of the show. Like, for what it's worth, she is good in confessional. She is a good narrator. But in terms of competing, this was the final for her, and she busts her ankle 5 minutes in.
I would even be okay if she does an occasional All-Stars appearance, like shows up for All-Stars.
Yeah, that's harmless.
For the main show, I just think that I think this should be it.
I think it's time for you to take your bow and allow your space to go to someone else. But either way, we talk a lot of crap here, and it's my gimmick. But hey, she's done something right. She's been able to be cast. She's made good friends along the way. She's made money off of it, appearance fees. Like, the challenge is a part of her. Like, she is also someone where if you think of the challenge, she is in that Rolodex of names that will first come out of your head. So she did something right. So Anisa, you can't say I'm always mean to you. Good job. But if I see you on next season, I will shit talk you more. And that leaves us with the Daves. The Daves get their first win, and it's not even a hot take. I think it's the first of a good chunk.
I think it's the first. I think Tori ends up winning more than Devin.
I could see that.
But I wouldn't be surprised with another Devin win. I think it's definitely going to be harder for him now being a champion. I don't think he's getting to 3, but I wouldn't be surprised seeing him get to 2.
And the biggest prediction for future seasons is how much longer does this Big Brother / Vacation Alliance last? Because we even have just today Devin taking shots at Fessel over Fessel's comments from Double Agents. And Fessel has already sniped back, making excuses, as always. I feel there's I think there are fractures in this group. When they take the shots, I don't know. But I don't think this group is going to be as locked in tight moving forward.
No, I don't think they are either. And I could even see it be how we've seen these last few seasons unfold, is that if you're coming back, if you're the Nelsons, the Jays, the, Corey's, someone that where, they've been, not rookies, they've done a handful of them, but they've never won. I think that's going to be more incentivizing for them to band together. And it isn't going to be, hey, let's get out the bananas, the CT, the Wesses right away. It's let's break up this, what was started as a core Big Brother group and then turned into the Vacation Alliance. I think they're going to see a lot more resistance in seasons moving forward. And I don't think Fessel's going to be as inclined to be there, especially if he goes on a season that Casey isn't there. There's no way they're working together. There's none.
There's none. There is absolutely none. I need to see next season Fessel versus the world.
I would be all for it.
Make him full heel turn into that villain that he wants to so desperately be. You can only do that by taking shots at that group. So Fessel, I know you listen to some of this stuff. It's time for you to get ready. Hey, you're always ready. You're strong. You're fit. You're active. Get your head on right into this next season because you're obviously going to get cast. It's time for you to play big, play bold. Don't hide in the middle, because what has that done for you? It's gotten you out. It's gotten you 4th place in 2 finals. You know who hasn't? Devin, who's not a loser anymore. But that wraps up everything Challenge Ride or Dies. We will not be covering the reunion specials. Dan and I need to be able to have some semblance of a break before we come back the week of March 8th when the World Championship starts. I will say the US side, or like the Challenge main show side of people that were being brought in, biggest person I'm very excited to see, Theo being back on the show.
100%.
After all these years recovering from that eye injury, I am so excited to see him play. But you'll see us then in 2 weeks. You'll also see us later tonight when we are going over week 3 of Australian Survivor coverage. Isn't that right, Dan?
Correct. At 9:00 Eastern this evening, it'll be myself, Alex, Chrissy from Australian Survivor last season, Blood versus Water runner-up, and our good friend, stand-up comedian Wayne Mehmet. That'll be the four of us back here, like I said, 9 p.m. Eastern, covering everything from week 3 of Australian Survivor. That's episodes 7 through 9.
Well, with that, I'm Alex Trias Dan Montchal. We'll be back later tonight for Australian Survivor. Until then, peace. We love you all. Goodbye.
And for more bonus content, go to realitypatron.com. That's right, become a patron now. Get additional coverage of all your favorite shows, the weekly Q&A, and you become a member of the secret, exclusive Facebook group. That's realitypatron.com.